So you're ready to start your pedal board build, right? You've got all your pedals figured out, you know what you want to put on the board and all that. But you're just not quite sure whether to DIY a board or buy a pre-made board. So should you buy or build your pedal board? And really, I would say it all depends. If you think you're just going to try to do it to save money and you don't really like doing this sort of stuff, then I would say no. Buy your board and be done with it and forget about it. But if you like doing this kind of thing, or if you're gaining an interest in building more things, then I would say, yeah, go for it. Like, it's a great way to get an idea you have in your head and bring it out to the real world. I also want to say thank you to my new subscribers. Every week we get more and more subscribers, and so I'm truly, truly grateful for that. If you have a question or a comment or anything, feel free to leave it down below and I'll answer it in a timely manner. So I'll try to show you a little bit about what I did when I built my board and how I went about doing it. And hopefully you'll find some of this info useful, and I appreciate all y'all being here. We're going to need a few things. One of the first things would be a isolated power supply. I used this cheap one I got from Amazon, and it worked great. We have our patch cables here, which I get the low profile 90-degree ones. That way they don't take up a lot of room when you're setting the board up side by side. They work out really well. So here is my pedal order. I put wah, volume, or compressor first, like this here, and then I will put a overdrive, distortion, or anything like that next. And then my modulation pedal goes after that. I put my delay after that, and then finally the reverb at the end of the line. You're also going to need some Velcro, a pair of scissors. I like to keep a razor blade handy. It never hurts to have one of them lying around for something. And these things, they are zip tie mounting bases. I just call them sticky backs. And it's great for the bottom of the board, cable management, and it makes things look nice and neat and tidy. And then zip ties. And then finally, your pedal board. I made this back in 2020. I've had several versions of different pedals on this thing. It's been great. And I would like to give you guys a few measurements and kind of talk a little bit more about it. But the Velcro is already on there, the clothy stuff. So all I have to do is put Velcro on the pedals itself to get that going. So here are some measurements. It was 20 inches by 11 inches. So I put a little angle on it so that the pedals face me a little bit more. That's 2 3/4 inches at the top and about 1 inch at the bottom. And that's also gives me room to use my case and different things like that. I put Velcro underneath here so that when I hook up the power supply, that's where that's gonna go, and it's tucked out of the way and it looks really good there. And then here is the little board I put on there. I just cut a couple pieces of 1x2 at an angle, and you know, that's really all I did for that. So one of the first things I did was I laid out all my pedals and put all of the patch cables in and everything right where I wanted them, and I put the pedals together to kind of get an idea of what kind of space we're looking at. Then I took some tape and I made an outline of the actual size of the board that I wanted. And you can use a straight edge, you can mark it however you want to do it, but this just gives you a visual of what your board is going to look like size-wise. Don't worry if you get it a little crooked, you just take a measurement, and when you cut the board, you make it all straight and square. So, plus the tape, you can remove it and put it back and do that sort of thing. So then once I got my basic outline of where I want to go, I measure from the insides of the lines. If you measure from the outside, you're going to have that extra width of the tape sticking out, and you don't want that. So just measure from the inside, and you get your measurement lengthwise. Nice thing about this is that you can always move your tape around and figure out exactly how big you want your board. So once we get that, then we get the width measurement too. And so this is the minimum that I'm going to need. It's going to be a 9 by 19.5 inches, right? And so while I've got all of this ready to go, I'm just going to go ahead and plug up my power supply and make sure all the pedals are powering on and working. And it's just, since I've got everything, the patch cables plugged up and stuff, it's just easier just to do it, And so there you go. They're all working. Everything's powering up like it's supposed to. And so I don't have to worry about any troubleshooting or anything like that at this point. Now I'm going to double check my measurements and make sure that that's the size that I want it, right? So I go ahead and make my measurements again just to double check everything is good how I want the board. And now I know that this is going to be my minimum size. So I went ahead and shopped for a case before I built the board. And the reason why I did that was sometimes when you build in things, you might make it a little bit of an odd size or whatever, right? So I thought that it would be best to go ahead and buy the bag and then build the boards so that I have the bag with me in case I need to make any adjustments or whatever. And so I gave myself a couple inches, and I went with 11 inches by 22 inches, I believe it was, on this. And now when I go to cut the board, I have the bag here so I can cut the size how I want it and then put it in, make sure it all fits well, instead of going through, taking all the time to build this and then not being able to find a case that would custom fit it. You just make the board fit the case, basically. So get the right sizes you need. And this was a MIDI keyboard bag I got on Amazon for like 30 bucks. And it was the right size that I wanted, the right thickness. And it's been great. I've been using it since 2020. And yeah, I can't complain. So I take some Velcro and we're going to stick it on the bottom of the pedals. I do not cover the whole pedal. I just take little strips and I put them in between the screws so that you can get to the screws if you need to and open the pedal up. And it really doesn't take much. This Velcro is really crazy sticky, so I went ahead and got that going. Also, for the bigger pedals, I just use 4 squares instead of going the whole length of the pedal. And then for the wah pedal, it was a little different because mostly wahs come with little rubber feet on them, right? Well, the nice thing about that is that you don't need a screwdriver to open these up. You can just grab the feet and twist it, and the rubber holds onto the side of the screw and it'll unscrew it with ease. So what I'm going to do is put the Velcro on the bottom of the rubber feet and just let it go at that, and we'll see how it does. But if something happens and I decide that it's not sticking well enough, I can use a little super glue or something to do that too. So I just much rather have the rubber on there and go that route than not. So, but that's just my preference anyway. And then we're going to add some Velcro strips to the power supply. And like I said before, that's going to be stuck to the bottom of the pedal board. And now it's time to fit everything up and get it all going, route everything how you want to route it. And I don't necessarily push it down really hard when I'm first putting the board together, just because if I want to move things around, it's a little easier that way. And then while I'm routing out all my power wires and everything like that, I'm just trying to keep everything nice and neat and tidy and out of the way so that if I want to add something to the board later, it's good. And then here's the power supply. I like to keep the fittings toward the outside of the power supply. That way, if I have to fix something or do any work on it, it's easily accessible to plug and unplug things. Now for the wiring, I go ahead and hook everything up like I'm supposed to, and decide how I want to run the cables that way. So once everything's hooked up, I get all that good to go, I will take one of those sticky back bases and some zip ties and loosely put it around my cables. That way I'm not cinching anything down right away or anything like that. And I can move things around till I decide where I want them. And then obviously I peel the adhesive cover off of the back of the sticky back and then just push it on the bottom of the board. And now you have a very solid way to keep your cables from flopping around or getting pinched or anything like that. And you don't want to super cinch the zip ties either. I just snug them up a little bit. So once I got my cables routed, I go ahead and cut off all the tails of the zip ties because we want our stuff to look nice and neat and tidy. So, and there it is. We have all our cables routed nice and neat and out of the way. I can get to anything I need to work on the power supply or anything like that. All the pedals are sticking just wonderfully. And yeah, that's about it. So it's kind of a fun thing to do, to be honest with you. I really do enjoy stuff like this. Now we're going to put it in the bag just so you can see how that goes. The wah pedal will stick out a little bit, but it also it does fine that way because it's such a solid. There's no knobs or anything on there, so it does really well right there. Also, this is not a flight case or anything like that. This is great for going around town, and if you go to open mic nights or whatnot, you can grab this along and at least bring a few of your favorite effects with you. And so then I just pull it out of the bag and plug everything in, and I am good to go. So I would like to know what you're planning on doing for your pedalboard build. Are you going to buy a board, or are you thinking about building one? I just really do enjoy making things like this, and it just feels a little more personal. Also, if you notice with the bag and everything, it doesn't look homemade, right? Like when it's in the bag and I'm carrying it around town or whatever, nobody ever thinks that I made this myself. Now, obviously the board is pretty crude, but I didn't do anything fancy with it. I used scrap wood. It cost me nothing to make, and paint it black, and it'll do whatever function you need it to do. Plus, it'll last forever. I mean, I've had this board for 5 years, and I'm still using it, and it's still going strong and working great. So let me know if you built one or if you're going to build one, and yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.